Well, it reads like something out of a Dan Brown thriller. A Harvard professor is contacted by an anonymous collector with a tantalizing artifact, a small scrap of papyrus covered with an ancient text making the first known reference to the wife of Jesus. The notion that Jesus might have been married sparked controversy in the Christian world. And I'm joined now by the Harvard scholar at the center of it. Karen King is a professor of early Christian history at the Harvard Divinity School. And welcome.
Thank you.
So we're very intrigued about this collector. That's something that you have kept very secret. Would that lend more credibility to this if you could say where this originated?
Well, if we knew actually more about the find itself, who found it in Egypt, how, the history of it since the find, that would be of enormous use. When things are found by professional archaeologists, that gives us really great information. But I think that a lot of people who own these things and who trade in them are anonymous. And so for me, the issue about knowing his identity, I don't think makes any difference. What really matters is the kind of scientific testing that's been done and that kind of work.
So this scrap is tiny, and just to give a little bit of perspective, we put a penny next to this. So it's just this tiny script over, a little piece that somebody thinks was kind of like almost punctured out of a larger text, assuming it's genuine now. And you wonder why, and it looks like it's neatly cut out. You wonder why someone would do that.
Well, I don't know that someone did. I mean, what we can tell is that the top of the fragment, and it is, you're right, it's perhaps a little smaller than a credit card. Like that gives people a sense of the size. The top looks like it may have been cut. We don't know if it was cut in antiquity or it was cut in modernity. We don't actually know the size because the parts on all the edges are missing. So you don't know if it was from a big sheet or a smaller sheet. But in fact, a lot of the fragments of papyrus that we have, including, for example, fragments of the New Testament, come to us as just really little tiny remains. I mean, they're very old, suffered a lot of damage, and that's certainly true for this one.
So I just want to put in perspective here the controversial parts of this, because it was just a couple of phrases there, and one of them was the text says, Jesus said to them, my wife, and another part of it says, she will be able to be my disciple. So this is the first reference to wife. Why is this so controversial in the Christian world, that Jesus might have been married? Why was there so much instant blowback and, this has got to be a fraud and a forgery, and why?
Well, I think that's actually the most interesting part of the whole story. For me as a historian, we've been finding this kind of new Gospels, new Acts, new papyrus literature from Egypt over the last century, and we've got a lot of these materials, a lot of new Gospels, and that's what I work on, the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Thomas. So now we have a new one. But for the general public, for a lot of people, first of all, to discover that there's something that's called that is a new dialogue between Jesus, and that it says my wife, and I think that sparked a really wide range of reactions. Some people reacted because they thought the Bible said that Jesus was not married. It does talk about Jesus being married to the church or having the bride of the church, but it doesn't actually say whether Jesus was married or not. And people like to know. But tradition has come down. And for me, that's the interesting question. Given that there's silence about this thing, how did we come to the place where we're at, where people generally think Jesus was not married, when we don't know? So
I should just interject that you're not saying he was. You're not saying, this is proof. You're just saying this is a reference.
I am saying this is not evidence that Jesus was married. Absolutely. And that may be, the story of my email. People who like this and people who don't like it generally think that's the claim, but it's not. So this is not in any case evidence. But you're right that people react as though that's the claim that was being made. And so some people, I think it challenges their biblical faith. Other people from the Catholic Church say, well, this would really undermine a celibate priesthood. Other people, I think it has to do with questions about the status of women. So
I was interested about the carbon dating on this. You were able to pretty much determine that the papyrus is legitimate. It's the ink where these little scripts are written that you're not dead set positive about, but you think you could find a way to prove that too.
What we've done is we've tested the the papyrus itself. It's been carbon dated to the 8th century, by my colleague Noreen Taras at Harvard. Other people, especially Jim Yardley at Columbia, has done a lot of work with Raman testing on the chemical composition of the ink. And what's actually scientifically very important about this is that he has put together a whole research project where he's looked at dated papyri and looked at the chemical composition of the ink and can place this fragment within these other papyrus fragments that were written between 1 and 800 on the basis of the ink. So that's just about as strong as you're going to get.
I'd say you got it, nailed this one pretty well.
I think that's pretty nailed.
Karen King,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming.